Wait. He's already lost almost 50 tanks. But how? It's the middle of the night. The battle doesn't even begin for hours. Oh, Vatutin stole them from him. Yeah, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Well, he's still got over 500 tanks. Yeah, he can afford to share some. Okay. It's the early hours of July 12, 1943, and 5th Guards Tank Army Commander Pavel Rotmistrov is putting the finishing touches to his forces on the outskirts of Prokhorovka. In hours, they're going to go into battle with Paul Hausser's 2nd SS Panzer Corps. For his part, Hausser has his forces right where he wants them, and he reckons his Totenkopf division is well placed to continue the advance on Prokhorovka. Who will come out on top? Who knows? For now, let's take a look at how Hausser and Rotmistrov have deployed their armored armadas. I'm Indy Neidell. This is a World War II in real-time mini-series on the Battle of Prokhorovka. This episode is mainly deployment and is a bit dry, but is necessary, and the other episodes are super exciting. Trust me. Okay, despite the losses taken over the past few days, as they advance towards Prokhorovka, Hausser's corps still has 339 tanks, tank destroyers, and assault guns. Broken down by type, these are 98 Panzer IIIs, 87 Panzer IVs, 16 Panzer VI Tigers, 8 Soviet T-34s, 18 command tanks, 73 Stug assault guns, and 39 tank destroyers of various types. During the battle, some of these will be kept back as replacements or will be away from the front lines with the command units. As for the individual SS divisions, their positions and their objectives for the day, the 1st SS Panzer Grenadier Division Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, commanded by Theodor Wisch, is the furthest forward, forming a sort of armored finger pointing towards Prokhorovka. Down the middle of this finger runs the main railway line with its 10-meter-high embankments. This divides Leibstandarte's forces into those north of the line on the German left and those south of the railway line on the German right, but the bulk is to the north. At the front, the 3 battalions of Leibstandarte's 2nd SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment occupy positions stretching in a line from Hill 252.2 to their strong point at Oktyabrski State Farm, and some distance beyond out into the fields. The farm itself is a real strong point. The Soviet troops who had occupied it dug extensive defensive fortifications, and now overnight the Panzer Grenadiers have worked hard to add to these, laying mines on the approaches. There is also a fearsome array of anti-tank weaponry there. Each Panzer Grenadier regiment has a company of 6 towed 75mm PaK-40 high-velocity anti-tank guns, and the troops occupying the farm have dug in a few of them, along with the lighter 50mm PaK-38 anti-tank guns. Leibstandarte also has 12 of the mighty 88mm flak guns, which can also be used as anti-tank weapons. Moving slightly south from Oktyabrski Farm, we have Hill 252.2, where Joachim Piper's 3rd Battalion is dug into trenches vacated yesterday by the Soviets. Piper's battalion is different from the others in that they travel in half-track armored personnel carriers rather than regular trucks. These give the men better mobility and protection against small arms and shrapnel. Along with his half-tracks, Piper also has some anti-tank guns and some artillery. His type of battalion would normally be reserved for a panzer division rather than a panzer grenadier division. In total, Leibstandarte has 56 tanks the morning of July 12th, as there have been some losses over the previous days of fighting. These are 5 Panzer IIIs, 41 Panzer IVs, 6 Panzer IVs, command tanks, and 4 Panzer VI Tigers. Almost all of the Panzer IVs are under the control of the Panzer Regiment, which is a single battalion of 3 companies. There should be another battalion, but they have been sent back to Germany for conversion to the Panzer V, the Panther. Importantly, Leibstandarte's Panzer IVs are the most modern variants of the tank, with a high-velocity 75mm gun and additional armor around the sides and turret. For their part, the Tigers are formed into their own heavy tank company. Against regulations, Leibstandarte's heavy tank company also keeps 4 Panzer IIIs. Along with the tanks, they have 23 Stug assault guns and 17 tank destroyers such as the Marder III. We aren't entirely sure where all of these are deployed. We know that some of the tank destroyers and Stugs will see action south of the railway line. Some others may fight at Oktyabrski State Farm or behind the anti-tank ditch with the Panzer Regiment. We also don't know for certain where the Tigers are deployed to start with. They may even be kept somewhere in reserve at first. Some believe the Tigers start the day over at Oktyabrski State Farm. Others think that some of the Panzer IIIs and IVs have also been organized into a sort of temporary extra company of the Panzer Regiment, which is something that the SS divisions have done in the past. South of the railway, Leibstandarte has the 2nd and 3rd battalions of the 1st SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment. The 2nd is supported by 5 of those Marder tank destroyers. Today, they are to complete the capture of Storojevoye and the woods north of it, the Stalin State Farm, and Iamaki. The forces north of the railway, the bulk of Leibstandarte's power, are to remain on the defensive at least for the start of the day. This is because yesterday's reconnaissance missions say that the Soviet defenses in front of Prokhorovka are too strong to be penetrated by a frontal attack. For that reason, Leibstandarte is to hold off advancing on the town until Totenkopf's forces have brought their panzer group across the bridgehead at the River Psel and pushed northeast. The 3rd SS Panzer Grenadier Division Totenkopf under Hermann Priess is to take the uplands here, occupy Hill 252.4, just north of Prokhorovka, cut the road between Prokhorovka and Kartashevka, and start hitting the Soviet defenses in the flanks. Just a side note here, Totenkopf's official commander on paper is Max Simon, but as of July 1943, Hermann Priess is the one leading the division on the ground. As of this morning, July 12th, Totenkopf possesses 133 armored fighting vehicles. These are 53 Panzer IIIs, 30 Panzer IVs, 11 Tigers, and 7 command tanks. They also have 21 Stugs and 11 tank destroyers. They will face off against Alexei Zharov's 5th Guards Army. He has the 52nd and 95th Guards Rifle Divisions and the 11th Motorized Rifle Brigade. Totenkopf, being on the other side of the River Psel, has left Leibstandarte quite exposed, though. The wedges of the 2 SS divisions have drifted apart, and there is now only a loose connection between them, but Leibstandarte's reconnaissance battalion is monitoring this, and Totenkopf's Panzer Grenadier Regiment Theodor Eicke has remained on the south side of the Psel down in Vasilevka to cover the gap, but it is still a real point of vulnerability. Pavel Rotmistrov will send one of his armored corps to exploit that gap. By the early morning hours of July 12th, Rotmistrov's forces have mostly completed their preparations. Opposite Leibstandarte's central positions, on the Soviet right, we have the 18th Tank Corps under Boris Bakharov. In the first echelon, Bakharov has his 181st and 170th Tank Brigades, supported by the 1000th Anti-Tank Regiment. And they have the job of attacking southeast across a 2-kilometer-wide section of the Psel Valley east of Petrovka. They are to attack with their right flank passing through the string of villages that line the bank of the Psel, and their left flank passing clear of the defenses at Oktyabrski State Farm. The goal is to break German resistance between Andreyevka and the northern boundary of Komsomolets State Farm. In the 2nd and 3rd echelons, Bakharov has the 32nd Motor Rifle Regiment, 36th Guards Tank Regiment, 110th Tank Brigade, and the 42nd Guards Rifle Division. Altogether, the 3 echelons of the 18th Tank Corps count about 151 tanks and armored fighting vehicles. These include 75 T-34s, 58 T-70 light tanks, and 18 Churchill tanks. Next to Bakharov, we have Ivan Kirichenko's 29th Tank Corps, which is attacking astride the railway. They intended to start this attack from the open field south of Prokhorovka, but these positions are now occupied by the Germans. So, Kirichenko's forces form up in the southern suburbs of the town itself. The 32nd Tank Brigade will lead the charge against the German troops dug in between Oktyabrski State Farm and the railway line, with the 31st Tank Brigade in the 2nd echelon. Slightly further down the German flank, the Soviet 25th Tank Brigade is to lead the charge against the 2nd and 3rd battalions of Leibstandarte's 1st SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment, south of the railway line near Stalin's State Farm and Storojevoye. Kirichenko's tanks are supported by the SPGs of the 1446 and 1529 Self-Propelled Artillery Regiment. That's 126 T-34s, 81 T-70s, 11 Su-122s, and 10 Su-76s. The first echelon will go into battle with the men of the 26th Regiment of the 9th Guards Airborne Division riding on their tanks, with the 53rd Motor Rifle Brigade following in the second echelon. The 29th Tank Corps' objective is to reach the Komsomolets State Farm. Finally, looking down at the right flank of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps, we have the 2nd SS Panzer Grenadier Division Das Reich under Walter Kruger providing flank security for the Germans. Das Reich has its 5 Panzer Grenadier battalions from the 3rd Panzer Grenadier Regiment Deutschland and the 4th Panzer Grenadier Regiment Der Führer strung out in positions from Storozhevoye to Ivanovsky Vyselok to Yasnaya Poliana. In terms of tanks, Das Reich has 110, 40 Panzer IIIs, 16 Panzer IVs, 8 T-34s, 1 Tiger, 5 command tanks, 29 Stugs, and 11 tank destroyers. Facing them, Rotmistrov has the 2nd Guards Tank Corps under Alexei Burdeny. Burdeny's corps has regrouped after its fighting yesterday and will attack from new assembly areas east of Belnichino and Vinogradovka. In the gap between Kirichenko's 29th Tank Corps and Burdeny's 2nd Guards Tank Corps, Rotmistrov places Alexei Popov's 2nd Tank Corps. Popov's forces are badly weakened from fighting over the last few days against the Leibstandarte Division, but Rotmistrov also attaches units from the 10th Anti-Tank Artillery Brigade. Popov is tasked with joining the attack against the Leibstandarte and Das Reich battalions in and around Storozhevoye. Altogether, the 2nd Guards Tank Corps has 141 tanks, 86 T-34s, 52 T-70s, and 3 Churchills. The 2nd Tank Corps has 59 tanks, 34 T-34s, 22 T-70s, and 3 Churchills. Rotmistrov also has a large reserve force, 169 AFVs of the 5th Guards Mechanized Corps, and another 57 vehicles held at Army level. This means he has about 805 tanks in total. But like I said, not all of these will go into battle during the initial attack. When things kick off, Rotmistrov will aim about 535 tanks at the Leibstandarte and Das Reich divisions. Things don't get off to a great start for Rotmistrov, however, and even before the battle begins, he loses a lot of his tanks. See, at about 4 in the morning, Army Detachment Kempf manages unexpectedly to break through to the town of Rezhavets, seizing a bridge on the northern Donets River. This is actually a pretty crazy story in itself, with a German major named Franz Berke leading a Kampfgruppe of 20 tanks through Soviet lines. Yep, with 2 captured Soviet T-34s leading the way, Berke's men drive right past Soviet troops and armored columns. When they are challenged by a group of T-34s at the bridge, Berke's vehicles open fire at point-blank range and blow the Soviet tanks away. David Glantz covers this whole mission in the Battle of Kursk, how the German troops almost gave themselves away by swearing in German, and how Red Army soldiers just watched them as they pushed a broken down T-34 off the road. With the taking of this crossing, it means that Kempf's armored spearhead is less than 20 kilometers from Prokhorovka. So at about 5 in the morning, Soviet Voronezh Front Commander Nikolai Vatutin orders Rotmistrov to send some force south to help. This Rotmistrov does, sending Kuzma Trufonov with the 53rd Guards Tank Regiment with 21 KV heavy tanks and the 689th Anti-Tank Artillery Regiment with 24 anti-tank guns, along with a howitzer and a motorcycle regiment. He also sends the 11th and 12th Mechanized Brigades, the 92nd Guards Rifle Division, and the 26th Guards Brigade of the 2nd Guards Tank Corps. With the loss of the 26th Guards, Rotmistrov loses 44 AFVs. We will see how all this plays out when the action begins. Will Rotmistrov be able to deal the killing blow to the 2nd SS Panzer Corps? Will Hausser be able to turn the tables, sending Totenkov's armored spearheads to crush Prokhorovka? And is this really going to be the greatest tank battle in history? Find out next week. We're going to do quite a few of these miniseries covered the way we cover everything, chronology-based instead of event-based. A micro version of the main weekly series, sort of. If you want to see the first such thing we did several years ago, you can watch Pearl Harbor Minute by Minute right here soon. And join the Time Ghost Army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com to get more great stuff like this, for it is the army that makes our productions possible. Paul Panish It's the Time Ghost Army Prokhorovka Pal this week. And these are the newest Army officers. Do not forget to subscribe. See you next time.